Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Paul Morelli. I am the professor of trumpet at Valdosta State University. And this video is all about getting you prepared for the GMEA auditions. We will be going over the etudes. There are 2 etudes for middle school trumpet, 2 etudes for concert band, and 2 etudes for symphonic band. We're going to go over each one of them, and you will hear me perform each of them as a demonstration, as an example for you. Before we begin, let me give you some general tips for all of the etudes, some things that the judges will be listening for that will really help you out. First of all, we play a wind instrument. You need to take a very big breath and use a lot of air as you play. This will solve so many of your playing problems. You need a lot of air to play loud, you need a lot of air to play soft, and you need a lot of air for everything in between. Don't forget that. Second, there's going to be a lot of people at these auditions that learn the notes and rhythms and stop there. You definitely do need to know the notes and rhythms. Be sure that you practice so they're consistent, but don't stop there. Make sure that you're reading the articulations. There are slurs, staccato, legato, accents, marcato accents. All of these things are very, very important. And I know from experience, a lot of people that play this audition are not going to pay attention to that. Also, make sure you are reading the dynamics. There's lots of dynamics in these audition pieces. And in fact, a lot of them were not in the original etudes that they're based on. So make sure that you're reading those very carefully. If you've got a first phrase that's forte and then a second that's mezzo piano, make sure it's very, very clear that you are changing. And third, make sure that you have a style. No one wants to hear you play like a robot. Play each piece as if it's its own character. Whether it is a beautiful singing lyrical melody or a bright, aggressive, energetic fanfare, make sure we hear a difference and that you don't sound the same on everything. Do make sure, as you work on your dynamics for these pieces, that you always sound good. You never want to play so soft or so loud that you lose control of that beautiful tone quality. This is one of the challenges of being a really good trumpet player, is you need to be able to play both very loud and very soft and everywhere in between and still sound good. So just make sure you're not going off either end. Okay, let's start by looking at the middle school lyrical etude. Probably the biggest thing on this is just making sure that you can play it with a beautiful, clear, effortless sound on all notes, the high notes, the low notes, and at all dynamic levels, loud, soft, everywhere in between. This gives you a tempo at the beginning. They're asking for it at 92 beats per minute. So it is okay to start slower if that helps you read it and learn it for accuracy, but make sure that you are playing it at 92 and that you get used to what that sounds like. There's a few little interpretation things in here. Take a look at the grace note. You'll hear me play it when I play the demonstration for you. But yeah, we want this to be smooth and effortless, almost like you just thought of it as you were playing the piece. You might want to experiment with it a little bit even. And at the very end, you've got a retard in the last 2 measures, so slow down as you play that, and you have a fermata on the last note. There's no one right way to play that. Experiment with it. Try doing a small retard, try doing a big retard, try holding the fermata just a little longer than the written half note, try holding it a lot longer. See what you think is best. Tuning-wise, be careful of the low D. That note's very sharp on the trumpet. You'll want to kick out the third valve slide. There is a lot of that note in this piece, and pretty lyrical studies are where you can hear out-of-tune notes the most. So just make sure those notes are right in the middle. Okay, here's the demonstration. Okay, let's move on to the middle school technical etude. This one is in the style of a fanfare. So, a totally different style than the lyrical study. Bright, full, clear. The articulation should be somewhat separated on this. Don't make the notes too short that you can't hear the tone, but definitely shorter than on the last piece, on the lyrical piece, that is. Keep the same style of articulation and tonguing at the varying dynamics. The fifth measure looks the same as the first, but it's actually not because it's at a lower volume. Try to make it sound the same, except for being softer, though. This is in the key of C major. This is a very easy common key that you are all very used to. Do be careful when we've got notes out of the key, especially the G sharp there on the second line, that it's in tune. It might sound a little bit surprising when you get there. The tempo on this piece is 88 beats per minute, so keep it right there. It is a slower tempo than the lyrical study, but it is actually going to sound faster because there are so many 16th notes in it. Be careful, though, that you don't rush the 16th notes. That's a very common thing to do. Make sure to keep it exactly in time. And even if you can play this faster than 88, keep it at 88. You always want to keep the tempo that the judges are asking for and not make up your own. Here is the demonstration. Okay, let's look at the concert band lyrical etude. I know this etude very well. It comes from the 17th study in the Conconi Book of Lyrical Studies. It's not the exact same piece, but it is based on it. As a lyrical study, you want it to be beautiful and flowing. You want it to sound effortless. Be sure to carefully read the dynamics and articulations. There's some interesting dynamic changes, like look at the first line. It starts mezzo forte, but then at the end there's a subito piano. That means suddenly softer. So make sure we hear that. Make sure that's very clear. There's some articulations in this that might be a little surprising. Take a look at measure 13. There are some marcato accents. That's a little unusual to see in a lyrical study. You probably don't want them to be too harsh like they might be in a march. Stay within the style of a lyrical study, but just make sure that those notes are separated. You'll hear my interpretation on the demonstration in a moment. Intonation on this is a little more difficult because it has some leaps. For example, look at these highlighted parts where you have to leap up a sixth or an entire octave. And also be careful of the low D flats. That's a difficult note to tune on trumpet anyways. Make sure you're kicking out your slide. But it's extra difficult in this because it's a note that's out of the key signature, so it's going to sound a little unexpected anyways. We're in B flat major, so D flat doesn't normally belong in this key. So yeah, listen carefully to that. Make sure you can hear it before it comes out. This piece has two spots where it's marked with a retard. Again, this is something you can experiment with. Try it a few different ways and see what you think sounds best. Okay, here's the demonstration. Let's take a look at the concert band technical etude. This is a really well-known trumpet piece. It is the first characteristic study from the Arbenz book, or I should say it's edited from it. The whole thing is actually longer. It is full of 16th notes. That looks scary, but don't be too overwhelmed. The good news is it's not an extremely fast tempo. 84 beats per minute is what they're asking for. And it's in the relatively simple key of C major. Some things to watch out for on this. Make sure that the rhythm and the tempo are absolutely steady. 16th notes, especially when you've got tonguing and slurring alternating like you do in this piece, tends to make people speed up and slow down and speed up and slow down. See how steady you can make this. There are trills and grace notes in the piece. Take a look at the third line. A great way to practice something like this, though, is you might just want to practice it without those at first. Ignore the trill, ignore the grace notes, get a sense of what the line sounds like, and then add them in. You'll hear the way I do it, but like a lot of things, there's some interpretation involved. You want to make sure you stay in time, but the exact speed of the trill or the grace notes is up to you. One more thing to be really careful of on this. There are a number of places where you have to leap downward. I'll highlight a few of them on the page. These can be difficult to hear, and they can be difficult to land in tune in the center of the note. Practice those jumps. Make sure you can hear them, but then practice landing on that lower note really solidly. As much as you can, try to make the higher and lower notes sound connected, sound the same. Easier said than done, but give it a shot. The latter half of this does get into some somewhat difficult fingerings, where we've got the C sharps, the A flats, we've got some of this diminished language going on. So you may have to slow that down a good bit to get it comfortable. Remember, as you're practicing this, you don't have to start at 84. Start wherever you can play it perfectly, and then gradually work it up from there. If you are able to play this faster than 84, that's great, but make sure for the sake of the audition that you stay at the written tempo. Okay, here's the demonstration. Okay, let's look at the symphonic band lyrical etude. This is based on the 22nd etude in the Conconi book. Wonderful piece, wonderful piece. We are in the key of B flat major, so nothing too difficult there. Watch out for the rhythms in this. There's actually a lot of fast notes for a lyrical etude. There's plenty of 16ths, there's some 16th triplets, there's some grace notes. We want to do the best we can to make those all sound not just accurate, but effortless. You want it to sound like it's the easiest thing in the world. Even if it's not, pretend and see if you can play it like that. Make sure we get plenty of dynamics. There's lots written in here. And do your best to make sure the fortes are full and rich without sounding harsh. There's definitely a bit of a difference between a forte on a piece like this and a forte on, say, a march. A forte on a march can be harsh, aggressive. On this, we want it to be full and rich and beautiful. Watch out for the dotted 8th, 16th rhythms. It is really common for people to get lazy on those and to play them like triplets. They are not triplets. Make sure to play them exactly as written. 3/4 of the beat on the dotted 8th and 1/4 on the 16th. As you get more comfortable with this, a little bit of tempo flexibility is okay. You don't have to do that, but it would be appropriate on a piece like this to do a small bit of interpretation. Okay, here is my recorded demonstration. Okay, moving on to the symphonic band technical etude. This is another one from the Arbens book. It's based on characteristic study number 9. The key of this one is actually important to know. The first half is in B flat major, and the second half is in the relative minor, G minor. It's the same key signature. You might be wondering why it matters, since you're reading the same 2 flats either way, but it matters because our home, our center, has changed. In the first half, it's B flat. In the second half, our home base, our tonic pitch is G, and that's where everything is pointing towards. Good to know. Read the slurs carefully in this. They're a little bit unusual. On the first line, for example, the first 2 sixteenths of each beat are the ones that tend to be slurred, but then it changes on the second line. In bar 4, it's the second and third instead. So be sure to read that as written. Lean into the dissonant notes. Look again in bar 4, you've got the E naturals and the C sharp that don't belong in this key. Lean into those a little bit as if to say, yeah, I'm out of the key, but I meant to do it, and it was on purpose. A difficulty in this is that you have to go pretty high and pretty low, sometimes in the same phrase. At the very beginning, you start on low B flat, go all the way up to the high A, and then go all the way down to the low A, 2 octaves below. Do your best to keep all of those notes, the high, the low, and everything in between, sounding clear and full. Easier said than done, but it's part of what this etude is supposed to be working on. The tempo for this is not super fast. They're asking for it at 80 beats per minute. Keep it there, even if you can go faster, and keep it very steady. 16th note etudes like this tend to make people play frantically, tend to make people rush and just kind of go as fast as possible. You don't want this to sound frantic and panicked. You want to make it sound as if it's easy for you. Even if it's not, see if you can pretend that it is. Okay, here is my demonstration.